Looks like we're live on my end.
I believe you are correct, sir. And now if we can just, let's see here. Oh, I've got an ad coming up here. I was looking at how the screen looked. There we are. We're alive. Live or alive. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Sande, and this is Marty Edwards, and we are here for Apple World Today, live, or AWT TV live, or AWT TV, or whatever the heck we want to call it. We're here. Oh, and you know what's happening?
What's that?
I'm seeing last week's show here. This is weird. Well, are we showing live over there?
It says live on YouTube.
How weird. Well, in case people are seeing me with a full beard rather than being unshaven for a few days here, yeah, I'm gonna reload this because it's that's last week. That is so weird. For some reason, I'm seeing the stream live on. I'm gonna kill that and go back.
It was a good show, but you know,
it was a real good show for the 2 minutes it lasted.
I'm gonna check it out as well.
AWT TV. And
no, I'm seeing you with your shorn beard. So we're broadcasting this week.
That is so weird. And I'm showing. Well, I guess we're out there. It could be that it's having issues because the show name is the same as. I'm going to have to put the episode name in there for last week. Pay no attention to this man babbling here. But AWT TV last week was episode. I don't.
When I pulled us up live, I'm seeing this week's. I'm seeing live.
Do you know what episode this is, or?
No, I lost out somewhere. It was about 28 or 9, 28 or 7.
I'm going to put 28, and that was November 21st, 2017. And I'm just going to save that for the time being. I think what happened is I was lazy last week because of the holiday, and I didn't change things around, and things just went crazy. So let's see. Now it's reloading. Dun, 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 dun. There we are. We're at this week again. So sorry about that, everybody. But because I screwed up, we were out of, Weekend Warrior says, I see him with the beard. So it looks like we've got a visitor out there. That's good to see. And I'll say howdy. Yay. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. I'm Steve Sande. This is Marty Edwards, and we are here for AWT TV, Apple World Today TV. And I have to admit, we'll probably have a perfect show this week because I took Marty's suggestion last week, and I had kind of created this wonderful studio in my basement with a green screen back here, and it has bricks on it. Maybe next week I'll have space or something back there. But we were having issues last week where I kept dropping out. And this guy says, hey, why don't you just go get some of that flat Cat 6 Ethernet cable and run it down to your room? And I said, good idea. In fact, the minute we got off the show, I ordered the Cat 6 cable. I got way too much.
Was it the flat cat, the real flat thin?
Yeah.
It works great around the house. I use it for short runs.
Yeah. And it was great because it was like $14.39, 100 feet.
Yeah.
Included wire ties and the little clips, nail-in clips that you can use.
Yep. Exactly.
So I got it running in there. I had, oddly enough, a few weeks ago, I did a review of the name of the company is Quack Quack, QACQOC, Japanese, or excuse me, Chinese firm that makes accessories. And I had a USB-C hub that just happened to have an RJ45 jack in it. So that's what I'm using for the connection. It's like,
Yeah,
it
it's
works
working great.
beautifully. Yeah, I was on an earlier podcast. If anybody is familiar with Chuck Joyner's Mac Voices, he's doing some fun Mac Voices right now where he's going through and doing Christmas gifts. People make suggestions. And we were on for an hour and 45 minutes on Skype, which usually drops out for me.
Yeah.
And guess what? Not one
No
dropout.
dropout. Yeah, I really recommend that flat cat. And I use regular Cat 6 around the house for all the backbone to everywhere. But if it's something non-critical, I use flat cat because it will go right under a baseboard and carpet and you can't even see it.
Yeah. And it worked great. The only thing I had to do was drill a hole that went from our upstairs to the downstairs and had to be double wide so that the RJ45
Right.
connector would fit. But it's hidden strategically, so it looks great. The only time we'll have to worry about it is if, probably in 10 to 15 years when we sell the house, somebody will go, why is there a hole in the floor? It'll be a horrible thing.
I'm a little careful to say flat cat around the farm animals here.
Yeah, well, and I'm expecting our two cats to come down here any minute now because they love wandering in the basement. And the horrible thing about flat cats, they don't like hearing that.
No.
So I gotta ask you, how are things going with the iPhone?
Well, going fine. I tell you, I've got a couple of anomalies.
Excuse me, iPhone. You've still got the 7
I've got
Plus.
the 7 Plus, and if anybody's viewing new, I'm going to skip this year, and I'm going to just hold out and be the old timer.
You're going to be the first guy with the iMac Pro on the block.
I'm really thinking about it, and I've said it many times. My wife wants me to get it. You can't ask for more than that. Well, I'm using a Mac Mini for this broadcast, but my main powerhouse computer I game on and do some things is actually a little over 10 years old. So I'm really, really in need for a computer. So I'm really thinking about the iMac Pro. And the more I see about it, and the more I'm thinking about it still. But anyway, I've had a couple of anomalies on my phone. I've been saving them for our broadcast tonight. They probably won't even do it. Now let me broadcast a screen of my phone over there. Get that going. We'll obviously address tonight. I don't misunderstand. This is obviously an Apple-centric show, and I love iPhones, Apple stuff, and iOS. But it seems to me that the software has really gotten a little bit buggy here lately. I tell my wife this daily, and I actually read something to this effect. I think a lot of it, Apple is spreading themselves mighty thin. I read just yesterday they expect them to spend $4 billion next year on video content. I'd much rather have that $4 billion spent on iOS shoring up, but that's just me. And
I'd love to see them go out and poach some of the best possible software developers. Get them from Google, get them from Microsoft, get them from all these companies, bring them over and fix the problems.
Yeah, I think so. And just a second. My phone was asking if I wanted to trust this connection. It's been connected many times, but
maybe we have another bug.
Yeah. Some reason it's not trusting this computer. So let me try to get trust established again because I cannot. All right, hit trust. Cannot get my iPhone connected to the iTunes. Anyone watching, I apologize for the delay, but it'll be here in a second. All right, now then it wanted my password. I want to show you a couple little bugs that have come up, and they're easily fixable enough, but they seem to happen so often that I have to take care of them. Okay, I'll have you an iPhone screen here in a second. I moved you to the wrong screen, multiple monitors here. All right.
Whatever screen I'm on, it's the right screen.
Yeah. All right. All right. So, all right. Now I'm do that. Let me share the iPhone. If you've never done this before, to share your phone to broadcast is fun, but it's a few hoops. All right. I guess you see my phone there, don't you?
Yeah, sure do.
All right. You know how you take now when you take a screenshot, it puts the little icon down in the corner. Puts a snapshot of the screenshot in the corner. Let me take a screenshot here, and I'll just take it as 44 degrees here right now. And so let me take a screenshot. I'm going to do it. All right, I just took it. Nothing happened.
I'll bet it's because you're doing the screen sharing thing.
Well, now let me go to the, there's my Apple picture. Let me go to my screenshots album. And sure enough, there it is. I just took it.
Ah, okay.
But it never puts the icon in the screen, the thumbnail in the corner anymore. And the only way to do it is to reboot it. You know, that is, let me take sort of an odd screenshot so you'll know. I'll do something halfway here if I can. I'll take a screenshot of, all right. All right, I'll take a screenshot of a screenshot. All right, there. I just took the screenshot, and we'll go back, and sure enough, there it appeared. And I never got the little one. No.
Weird.
Here's all my screenshot album. Okay, I'm going to do it. I took a screenshot. Now you'll watch it appear in the album, but it's never giving me the thumbnail. And I just rebooted my phone 2 days ago. But I'll show you a trick in a moment that a lot of people don't know that can clear a lot of anomalies. Let me show you another one. I run into a lot of graphical issues on iOS. Let me open up the compass here, and it'll give my location, everything. That's fine. I've shown it online many times before. I'm running into this in a lot of places. All right. You see how the elevation at the top is overlaid on the information. Up there. You know, I cannot get that to scoot down unless I tilt the phone funny ways, just laying down. And I'm finding that a lot of places where things don't line up anymore. And it just seems to be sort of a quality control issue to me. You know, it's just, but I'll show you how that I will fix that screenshot thumbnail issue. You're checking your compass, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm checking my compass to see. Well, that's interesting. All my stuff is on the bottom of the screen.
Well, you've got a new nice phone. Mine's one of the old kind, like crank telephones, you know. But let me show you how to clear this. Let me go back to my current screenshots. And if you'll observe on the screen, I'm going to take another screenshot or two. They just appear without the thumbnail. All right. If I reboot the phone, it'll take care of it. Pardon me, but there's a quicker, easier way to clear all memory out of your iPhone. I do not know how to do this yet on the iPhone 10. Pardon me. If I press and hold the side button like I'm going to power down, but do not power down, press and hold the home button until the main screen comes back on. All right, I'm pressing and holding the home button. All right, just keep that flushes all memory out. You saw a flash. Now I'll go back to my screenshots. Let me take one. There it works now. So if you're having any anomalies, you can flush all memory out of RAM without a reboot. And that's one of the handiest tricks that I've ever used. Let's see if it fixed my compass. No, my elevation is still too high. So that is just a graphic anomaly. But I thought I would just show there are some anomalies. If you're having trouble with some things that just aren't quite right, that one with the screenshot thumbnail comes up for me all the time.
I got a question to ask you on the compass.
Mm-hmm.
On your iPhone, did you go with a larger font for readability?
I do, and that's probably it. You're right. Okay. I do have a larger font because my eyes are a little weak, and I like the larger font. I didn't go as far into the accessibility. There's like a superset. You go large, you can turn on accessibility and get a whole nother set. I didn't go into that. I just went to the large. But that's probably it.
So we're not going to blame Apple for that one.
No.
There is.
Apologies, Apple.
Yeah, there are a lot of things we can blame them for, but not for that one.
But I have found quite a few things not lining up quite right. And this may be nitpicking, but I hope they will get it where if you do choose larger fonts, that things will line up and still be pretty and you can see them okay,
Yeah.
Well,
but you're
exactly. I'm going to see if I can change that here in a bit.
Did you hear about the one issue? Remember a couple, or for months there was that one little issue where if you typed a lowercase I, it would come out as an A with a question mark behind it. And now there's one where if you're typing the word it, it comes out as capital I period, capital T period, as in infinite information technology. And the funny thing about it is, it's one of those just quirky little things. They tell you the best resolution for that is to go in and actually delete your dictionary that it's created, autocorrect dictionary. So that's a weird one.
Okay, I'm going to change my text size back down to something normal. I won't be able to read it, and check the compass. And okay, it's odd. It moved the elevation to the bottom of the screen now. It apparently is pushing it off the bottom and rolling across the top.
That's weird.
So I'm going to be nitpicky a little bit here. Let me show you what it did. Okay, because I still got that screen up, so it won't take but a moment to share.
Well, seriously, for accessibility reasons, they should fix that.
you see where it's put there now?
Yeah.
It's at the bottom. And I can read that when it's on my big screen. But even at that, and this is nitpicky, it seems like Apple doesn't have as much symmetry anymore. The degrees of my compass and my town are pushed way to the left, almost off the screen. So let me go back and go a little bit of a larger size. I had put it right in the middle. See, I can't even see this anymore. All right, let me go a couple bigger here and back to the compass and see how that looks. Okay, that looks all right, but it's still shifted. Now, I have been running it fairly large because I do like that. And it's back at the top, so.
Interesting.
So anyway,
so like you said, it's buggy. Like it's rolling over.
Yeah, that's you've almost got to choose a little bit. So that's it is. Now, that was a good catch by you. I hadn't even thought about the text size causing that. I didn't even notice it till a day or two. But
I'm just but it shouldn't make that much of a difference. Yeah. They should be able to move things around. Make the compass circle smaller or something.
Yeah. To accommodate, because my eyes, I do need to wear reading glasses, but I like that larger size. It's comfortable for me. And but the main thing I want to do is to give people that tip that still have the old time phones with a home button. Press and hold power until it says power down. Slide to power down, but do not do that. When you get that prompt, hold the home button about 5 to 7 seconds. Your screen will flash because it's removed everything from RAM and really fixes a lot of things.
I really wish I knew how to do that on the iPhone.
Yeah. If any of our viewers know how, leave something in the comments there.
Yeah, that would really help. Well, it's interesting seeing these iOS bugs and hearing about other ones, but we've heard of a big, nasty bug that somebody ought to get fired for.
I told Ruby tonight, I said, I imagine there's been some, I'll say, intense discussions at Apple tonight. I know Craig Figueredo, the head of software development, and his underlings, I imagine they had a call all forces in tonight. Let's have a meeting.
Yeah, and what the issue is that a developer, it was either a developer or a security researcher, I can't remember. But anyway, this guy found out that Well, there's an account in Unix. It's called the root account. The root account has control over everything. And what he found is that you could go in any location where you need administrative access to your Mac, and you can type in root as the username, leave the password field blank, and then say log in or do whatever, and you go right in and you have full control over the Mac. So basically, it's like having a combination lock and writing the combination on the bottom of it or something, right, so that people can do that, or leaving a key in a door so that somebody can walk up, open up the door, and just walk right into your house and steal everything. In this afternoon's AWT news update, we had a link in there to an Apple support document. And what that support document tells you how to do is to enable root, the actual root user, and then apply a password to that. And it creates a new user for your machine, but it's also going to protect you from somebody coming in and saying, hey, let's fool around with Steve Sande's computer. Let's go in. What it will do is actually, apply, like I said, a password to the root account, so they can't get in unless they know the password. So that's a good way of workaround right now. Yeah.
Anyone listening, they have to have physical access to your computer. It can't be done remotely. So,
yeah. Which is still good.
Yeah, that's I've been reading a lot of the forums, a lot of the tech blogs. They've been brutal against Apple on this.
Well, yeah, this isn't a just minor error. This is something that they should have checked day one. Yeah. My guess is that probably while High Sierra was in development, somebody probably went in and said, I'm tired of changing this to get root access. And they went in and changed some of the code and just made it extremely easy to do. And they forgot to fix the hole. And it took somebody else who, I have no idea how the heck he found it, but it sure enough works. I was able to recreate the problem this afternoon. And
right. I haven't even checked or quote fixed mine. That they'll roll out a fix here in a day or two, but still it's a big issue.
Yeah. It's a stupid issue. That should have never happened.
Well, a lot of the blogs I read said this is Windows 95 level errors back to that, day and time and all. So Apple does have a lot of things to keep up with. You and I've said this many times, and I'm sorry for the same old song routine, but I feel a lot of Apple's problems is we got too many irons in the fire. Yeah. If the next time they call me in to talk to me at the board meetings, which has never happened, but I would suggest drop some of the superfluous stuff. Your TV shows, Netflix competitor next year we're hearing about. Focus on iPhones, OS, your systems. Get back to your roots and your first love, Yeah. But that's just me. But then again, I realize they are a company with stockholders. They want to make money, so they're seeing other avenues to make it. So they're following those.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is, though, it's not as if Apple is the only company that's having some just blatant operating system problems. We're seeing it all around. And it's funny because my wife and I were having a discussion a little bit earlier today. As we mentioned last week, she retired. And her retirement is supposed to start. Retirement pension is supposed to start on December 1st, as are her, the kind of new benefits, the health plan we've gone to, and all the rest of that we get to pay for. And so she gets this letter today from her company, her former company, that says, hey, employee, you still haven't, send in your request as to what you want for benefits for next year. So, please be sure to do this. And we're going, but she's no longer an employee. She shouldn't have gotten that letter. So she called up their employee service center and talked with them and talked to two people, neither of whom seemed to have a clue. Took an unbelievable amount of time to pull her information up on their computer screens. And then still she had to, basically make an appointment to talk to a supervisor tomorrow who hopefully knows how to use the system and can hopefully reaffirm that she does indeed start getting her pension checks on December 1st and starts getting her health coverage on December 1st. And, we made the comment, this is a long story, but, we made the comment it's like nobody seems to be able to do their job anymore. And I had plenty of examples of this today as well. I had to take my elderly father to a doctor's appointment. I get a voicemail after I get back. We had set up an appointment for 2 weeks from now for a kind of a recheck. And I get a voicemail from somebody who says, yeah, well, we're supposed to set up an appointment for November 28th at 8:30 a.m. And we might need to change that to December 12th, at 11 a.m. or something like that. And I'm going, today is the 28th. We did have this meeting. What the hell is this person talking about? So I had to call them, instead of it being a competent person who called me and left the message, it ended up being somebody who really didn't know what the heck they were doing, called me and left a message. I had to waste time calling them and then waiting for somebody who knew what was going on to look at, and it's just happening everywhere right now. It seems like.
Well, that's odd you say that, because just yesterday, I've got OnStar on a GMC truck that I have, and it's run out and renewing. They had a special I noticed online I could renew for a certain amount. So I didn't do it then, but I got an automatic call in the truck. Press the blue button to renew. So I did, and it was a certain amount a month. And he said, hold on. And he said, that's online only price. That's fine. He said, let me pass you someone else. I waited, got on the phone, and she said, so-and-so said that you're not able to log online. I said, that's not the issue at all. I said, I log online fine. It just, I'm just calling to get this special. And so the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing most of the time, it seems like now.
Yeah,
I think they just read prompts, and so.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, people are, you get onto these things where you call a number and then you have 15 different choices that take you down some path. And I'm wondering if each person's job is now so compartmentalized that they know only this much, and they should know this much to actually be able to do something and be competent. I was going to mention one other thing. You mentioned OnStar. I've got Sirius XM radio in our car. And they give you, when you get a new car, you get, I think it's like 3 months new free service where you can kind of listen to it and say, do I really want to spend $100 a year for this or not? Well, shortly after we got it, I said, oh yeah, definitely. We used to have Sirius XM. I enjoyed it. I love the variety of music. Let's go for it. Got it. And ever since then, and this has been since August, I think, July or August, I'm still getting emails that say, you have an inactive, Sirius XM radio, and you should really sign up for service. Well, about a month and a half ago, I called up and I said, will you quit sending me the daily emails telling me to get a subscription? Because I have one. I'm a customer. I'm not, I'm not driving around with a Sirius XM radio in my car that's not hooked up to the service. Cut it out. So this person says, oh yeah, well, I'll put you on here. It'll take about 30 days, but no problem. You'll stop getting the emails. I'm still getting them.
I'm not surprised.
It just, it's like, Maybe we'll call this the incompetency episode.
Well, you know, Apple is obviously, without a doubt, maybe the most powerful tech company in the world, certainly on the verge of becoming the first $1 trillion company. But I was telling Ruby this afternoon, of course, she's heard the same old thing I've been telling you, you know, numerous times. I think it's like the hare and tortoise. Apple is going to continue to chase these side ventures so much that they're going to get passed up in some areas by Google. Amazon's coming up. Google, and you've heard me mention it so many times, but their voice technology, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
And so these side ventures, I think, are going to slow them down.
Yeah, and you know, you can see this in a lot of different areas. You know, one thing we've talked about is Siri just seems like, you know, I got to admit, Siri is faster than it used to be, but that means it's faster at giving you incorrect answers a lot of the time.
Right.
There are some things that Siri is very, very good at, and I love those, and I love being able to use them. And maybe that's 90% of the cases where people are using Siri. But it needs to be better in that extra 10% where people are able to, you know, ask a completely wacko question and get a really good answer back, or at least a, you know, here's the best web page we can find for you to go to. And I have a cat standing over here. It's being really sweet. Anyway, but, you know, Siri ought to be the shining star. You know, really, when it first came out, there was nothing like it. And it really should be the shining star of their operating systems. And it's starting to look like not much.
Well, you know, I admit I'm not going to give a demo, but I'm going to show on the screen real quick. If you'll notice on my iPhone here, there's my iMessaging. My keyboard looks very different. I have a dark keyboard with a Google logo. And it's because I've replaced the iOS keyboard with Google's keyboard. And I don't know, a lot of our viewers may not realize you can do that, but, you know, I can change the color. I can also swipe. If I was going to just tap APPLE, I can do, you know, swiping. And so of things like that. And so I have that keyboard on here. And if you'll notice, at the right, and I won't necessarily record anything tonight, but I tap in that. I tap the keyboard and hold it. And I might as well let it hear me talk a little bit because I'm broadcasting here on Apple World Today, and Google Voice almost never misses what did I say, period. It's almost always perfect.
Yeah, and
then it goes back to, you know, it puts it in the message right there for me.
Well, hopefully some of our readers are currently reading some of the articles that Chris Leckness is putting out there. And Chris, I met years ago. We were both going to the, he ran a site called Axum site that was really kind of pointed towards, I guess you could say, all sorts of, you know, Windows mobile devices like Pocket PC, and then they went to Windows Phone, and then they went to Windows Mobile, and, you know, Microsoft kept changing the brand. And we used to get invited to these, what they call Mobius conferences, and in which they brought in a lot of bloggers, and they would pick our brains and try to improve their product. And either they pick the wrong people to pick their brains, or they just never listen to us. But as you well know, they're kind of not doing well in the mobile space right now. Well, Chris, you know, I had always kind of been an Apple geek. Even when I was working for IBM, I'd always been an Apple geek. But he kind of went the opposite direction when Palm left, and, you know, BlackBerry left, and everything else. Android became kind of his direction to go. And he's writing this series right now. I think we had the third article today. Number 4 comes up tomorrow. But for the first time in many, many years, he decided to get an iPhone. He got an iPhone 10. And he's, you know, so far, there are some things he really likes about it. there are some other things that he's running into issues. We talk about software problems. He is really having issues right now with Bluetooth on his device, being able to do Bluetooth pairing. And this is something that he never had issues with when he was using his Android phones. He had a Google Pixel. And I have to admit that after I did the iOS 11 upgrade on my iPhone 7 Plus, and then after I got the Wonder phone here, the iPhone 10, I've had some issues with Bluetooth, other connectivity where you're just sitting there going, what the heck is going on? So once again, we're kind of seeing this half-baked thing and hoping they fix it quickly.
Right. I think you really said it right there in that hyphenated term, half-baked. I do feel like a lot of it is that they rush it out a little bit. And, I don't know. I just feel like maybe the quality control isn't there. Of course, I know it's so complex, millions of lines of code and so many things they won't know until it gets, out in the public and millions of people
well,
using
one thing we can hope is maybe they'll develop an AI that's good enough to do all the testing for them.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even mean to get to the little demo of Google Voice there a while ago. As I was talking, you saw how I didn't even miss a thing. And, I have to admit, I really am glad, and I'm very thankful that Apple lets Google Voice be used on the iPhone because they could easily block it. The only thing I can't do is the home button can't access it. That's reserved for Siri only. And I understand that, but I've got pretty good access to it. And so I can do a lot with it.
Wonder if they'd make it, since the iPhone 10 doesn't have a home button, if they'd make it, allow you to absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. It'll never happen.
No, it won't. And so I can't use, like, Hey Google, or actually it's okay Google, but I think you can do Hey Google as well. But Hey Siri, I can't use hands-free because a lot of things I listen to that's recorded that I actually recorded that use my own voice, I'm always tripping or triggering Hey Siri. So I've had to disable it because
it was kind of funny during our the podcast I was on this afternoon. We had a guy you may know, and I'm trying to remember his first name. I think it's Chris, but Chris Edge from Jamf.
I might, that
Charles
does seem,
Edge?
a little bit. I mean, I probably saw him at the Jamf conference if he was speaking any.
But it was funny because he was, we were talking about certain things, and he referred to it as SIRI instead of you know what, so he wouldn't say it off. Well, at one point he happened to slip and he said Alexa, and sure enough, he's talking, and then you hear, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I didn't hear that. Or,
exactly.
Whatever the.
The Hey Google is so. I actually have a Android phone over here, and without a SIM in it that I use for Hey Google commands and everything, and it works so good. Speaking of Jamf, when we were there, one of the guys I got to meet was I mentioned to you, one of the vice presidents of Microsoft was there, and he and I got a chance to talk with him a little bit. You saw my little impromptu interview with him about the Boy Scout thing and all. So,
yeah, I did.
But during that, I think after I stopped filming, I told him, he's talking about he uses an iPhone as well, has an Apple Watch. We was talking about Android in the market. And I said I was really hoping that Windows Mobile would do better, so we'd have a third player for competition and just progress the market. He said, so did we. And that's all he ever said. They really, because it's just about gone.
Well, oddly enough, I think Google itself is going to be the next competitor to Android, because Android, when you get right to it, it's a Google product, but it's also open source, which is why you have so many different flavors of Android. Everybody who comes up with a phone kind of forks it a different way. They put their own little tweaks and their own little garbageware apps in there. And, right now, Google is working on a project called Fuchsia. It's an operating system. Who knows if it'll ever even come out. But I'm wondering if maybe Fuchsia is going to be the operating system that it'll run on its very own Pixel devices and, maybe Chromebooks and things like that. And that'll be a totally separate operating system from Android. And they'll just say, hey, you people who have been making Android phones, you take it over. We're tired of doing the development. And I think at that point, you're going to watch Android just disappear because, Samsung will say, we'll create Samsung OS.
Well, they've already got one on their own, that Tizen, T-Z-I-N, so.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, Tizen, and I think, who was it? HTC?
Yeah, well, that OnePlus T5 or whatever, their derivative of Android is called the Oxygen operating system. Wow. You'd be surprised how many there are out there. As a matter of fact, this Android phone, I took a little project on myself this past weekend. I unlocked the bootloader on it and loaded some alternate operating systems on it just to test a little bit. There's one out of Finland called Sailfish operating system, which I actually really like. And it's multitasking strength. I loaded what used to be called Saginamod, I think it was. I'm not even sure if it's right pronunciation. And so you can really load your own operating systems, but there's not really, when you load those, you don't get Google Play and Play Store and all that. But I think you're right. I think that's what Google will do their own lockdown system, operating system like Apple has, really focus it on their phones and go from there. And I had actually forgotten about Fuchsia till you mentioned that, but I've read quite a bit. I think I'm more into, well, I was going to say I'm more into the software than I am hardware. Hardware is nice, but it doesn't really matter. It's a hunk of metal and plastic and some stuff, and it's the operating system that makes it come to life and really do wonderful things. And, I think that's really where it's at. And I really want a super smooth operating system. And a lot of people disagree, but I'm not getting as smooth on iOS, say, as I used to with iOS 6 and some of those,
Well, you kind of just almost, echoed what Johnny Ive actually made the comment about. We talked about, if you look at the iPhone 10, it's really kind of just a blank slab. It's the software that really turns it into, some different type of device. And that, in the future, that's what they're thinking all iPhones will look like. They'll be these, kind of featureless slabs, but it's really the operating system that's going to bring it to life. So unless they are, get their act together here pretty quickly and resolve some of these stupid little problems that are coming up, there could be a real problem there in the future.
Well, there could be. And if a gaping hole ever develops on iOS and it did today on macOS, it's going to be a real problem for a lot of people. And it easily could,
Well, I tell you, the root access thing that came out today on macOS, I just, I was kind of chuckling because I can remember, let's just put it this way. I had a friend when I was working for IBM who, he ended up becoming an ethical hacker. That was his job at IBM. And one day I was bemoaning the fact that when we were doing this big project, 10 or 12,000 machines that we were updating, said it really irritates me when we have an appointment with a client and we get to the client and they're not there and we can't perform the work on their computer. And he said, oh, so you need to break in, do you? And he gave me a, flash drive, and he said, there's a little piece of software on here, and, put it in there and things are taken care of. He didn't explain how it worked, or anything, whether he developed it or somebody else did, but it basically let us, in those situations where you had to get access to somebody's machine, you had immediate access as that user. Normally, we would go in as an administrator. We had a special administrative code. We can go in and we could change things. But occasionally, you had to go in as a user. And usually, this is when somebody was about to get fired or laid off or something horrible was about to happen. Well, of course, amongst ourselves, we also found it fun to take this tool, log onto somebody else's machine, and then play pranks on them, put bizarre apps on there that would do certain things that they wouldn't expect. So, we were using them only for good purposes.
Now, you sure via YouTube you can't get access to my machine here? I'm thinking.
I'm sure. I hope.
But yeah, I actually remember some of those where you could get in and turn a person's screen upside down.
Yeah.
It was just a visual, just things like that. And,
well, we used to do stuff days. Like create, you take a screenshot of somebody's desktop, and then you would actually use that as the backdrop on the computer, and you would change all of their icons around. So they'd click in one particular location where they thought they were hitting, Microsoft Word, and it would fire up Solitaire or something like that. It was cruel, but fun.
Yeah, y'all had fun, didn't you? So with it.
Yes, we did.
But regarding, I was just checking here the latest on that. Apple has finally released a statement regarding that, and I guess you saw.
Oh, good.
They said we're working on a software update to address the issue. In the meantime, setting a root password prevents unauthorized access. And they give a link to a support document. And if you already have a root user, change the password. That's basically it. So working on a software upgrade. I suspect there's still some people. It says 7:20 in Cupertino. I imagine there's some people still in offices, don't you?
Yeah.
I imagine they'll be working all night. Some engineers will be.
Yeah, you will get those out tomorrow, damn you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's probably one where you have, if not Tim Cook, probably, like you said, Craig Federighi or somebody, with the whip.
Well, he's already, I understand why it happened, but still, the horse was out of the barn when that iPhone did not open at the demo. These are little black blemishes. That was embarrassing, and so.
Yeah, it's funny how that one happened.
Well, you saw him actually, and he said, ho, ho, oh, and he wiped his forehead. He broke out into a quick sweat there, I think, and really was a little nervous. Yeah. There's only a few million people watching. Probably not quite as many watching us tonight, but.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, right. I was going to say, you almost wonder if you had been watching the Apple stock price during that, right when they had that problem of it went, woo. Chart goes off and then, got it fixed. Comes back up.
I think a lot of and I do watch a lot of other broadcasters. I think a lot of people are just disappointed with the software performance. It is far more secure than Android, but I think they want a little bit more. And one of the things, this is probably too much discussion to bring up for tonight, but the phone has so much power. The iPhone 10 is as much as some of the lower MacBooks. And I think it's time to move away just from the static icons. And we've talked about this so many times, but I would love to have some active icons that would show the weather. If it's sunny, a nice radiating sun on that icon, or a cloud cover or rain. Yeah, it's going to take more battery, but just make it a toggle. You can turn it off or on. And we've got so much power there that we need to do a little bit more than just look at a grid of icons. I like eye candy.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I know. I don't know if Chris has written it or put it in his articles, but one thing. He did in one of them. But he mentions that one thing that he could do, for instance, in Android that he can't really do, is do a lot more customization of the kind of the lock screen. Be able to add a lot more things to it. And not just, more little widgets. He's talking about being able to do things like have a picture here that, is something that he really likes, and have the time over here and have weather down here, and do all sorts of fun things. And people, maybe 10 years ago when the iPhone first came out, people didn't have I won't say the smarts, but really the experience to be able to do things like that. But nowadays, you look at, people have been using these things for 10 years, one way or another, and they pretty much know how to use them. Give them a little bit more power and creativity, and be able to really customize these things. It makes it a support nightmare in some respects, because you can't go to somebody and say, okay, now swipe in this direction, and on your notification screen, do this. You can't do that in every case. But there are other ways. Maybe you have a administrator account or multiple user accounts, and somebody can get in there as an administrator and do troubleshooting if they need to, in a standard mode.
They've already mitigated that to somewhat. You can run TeamViewer as a client now on your iPhone. And so you can have a trusted friend log on. They can't control it, but they can look at your iPhone remotely and say, okay, I see you've got this here. You need to press and hold, and you can see if it jiggles. So a lot of people don't realize that TeamViewer can be run in view-only mode on your iPhone. And something else that you can do in Android, that there's so much more power in the iPhone. This is a 5.5 inch screen, but all the 5.5 inch Androids can do this. My basic Motorola over here can. It's split screen mode. I can run YouTube in the top, watch a video while I'm scrolling and texting in the bottom. I can have two actual apps running side by side. And I really wish they would allow that on the iPhone. There is enough space. Sometimes I want to watch two things.
Well, for YouTube, you've got the picture-in-picture mode on iOS, but still, that's not the same. And I get it completely what you're talking about there. That's one thing I love about the iPad Pro, is being able to, if I've got this wonderful MacBook sitting here, but there are some times that, I'm away from home. I've got my iPad Pro with me. I don't have this thing. And I go, oh, crud, I really need to do something. And I'll bring up, for instance, a Safari screen over here. And I bring up Bear, which is my text editor of choice now, over on the other side of the screen. And I've got that wonderful split screen view. Why not be able to do it on this?
Yeah, I'd really like to be able to. And even on the lock screen, I would love to have complications like maybe temperature and weather, just some things where you could customize. It's not an issue of power. The iPhone will outperform many notebooks now.
Yeah. And complications are a perfect example of how they could do it. They could just, a lot of the things that are on, like I'm looking at this right now, and I've got, and it unlocked. Oh, I love that. But, I've got my notifications coming up, and I've got the time and the date, and a couple of buttons down at the bottom, a flashlight, and what was the other one? Come on, flashlight and camera. Why not say, here are the following things that you can put on your home screen as complications. If you want the time in, if you actually would like to have a analog clock, you can have it. If you want to change the font that you see on the clock, here's a selection of 20 different fonts that you can use. It would be nice to be able to get in and do a little bit more customization.
You're right. And with Android, really customization, it's through you can, the sky's the limit. You can do anything you want, really. I read a good article on an Android site this week, and this may be a discussion for another time. It's more talking about Android flagships costing near $1,000. It says when you get to these sub $500 phones that do everything that you need and do it perfectly, where's the flagships going to leave? Pretty soon, I think these $1,000 or $1,500 phones are almost going to be niche products, because if this were to say crush and break tonight, I'm not going to renew my contract yet. I'd probably buy just out of pocket, maybe the iPhone SE. I can get a 32
Yeah.
gig version for $349, and that'll perform perfectly well.
Or you can, in many cases, you can get an unlocked and refurbished phone, from a number of third parties out
Right.
there now for even less.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you go, if yeah, I agree with you 1,000% here.
Well, I think I mentioned last week, but I'm going to reiterate it again from our carrier. Standard price, everybody else. If I buy the iPhone 10 with the 256 gig of RAM with tax, and if I get the service protection, it was $1,469. That is a iMac. It's a pretty decent MacBook. It's a used car if you want a basic used car.
Yeah. And,
So,
for a lot of people, having a used car that they can use to get to and from a job is a heck of a lot more important than having
well, it is.
a wonder phone,
I love electronics. I love gadgets and fooling with them. I always have. But on my automobiles, I'm at the point in life I want to get from point A to point B. I don't care how I get there, really, just get there safely. And I'm about to get there with the phone. I want to call and text, and I like to listen to, audio broadcasts on here. That's pretty much all I need. Do I need $1,000, $1,500 phone to do that? Or, you know, honestly, I've got a super cheap Android over here that will do all that. And granted, it's not iPhone, but I think we're getting to a watershed point.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too. You take a look at the what I call the smart peripherals market right now, and I've talked about drones quite a bit. And the
You
one
can drone
interesting,
on. I wanted to
yeah, I
say you
can
drone
drone
on.
on all night.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've been seeing in a lot of forums about this is of a lot of people in, for instance, the DJI ecosystem. I consider DJI to be like the Apple of drone manufacturers. And Unique, YUNEEC, is kind of like the Android, right now. Cheaper or less expensive, does a pretty good job, but it doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles that you'll find on DJI. But the thing that's interesting is you do see a lot of folks saying, I feel more comfortable, and I know that the iOS version of the DJI Go 4 application, I know that it's going to work, and I feel a lot better about it than I do about the Android version. So I think what they're seeing there is that issue where, one version of Android on, Android 7 on one particular phone is not exactly the same as Android
Right.
7, or, whatever it may be, ice cream cone or tuna fish or sandwich or whatever it happens to be on another manufacturer's phone. Whereas that when you get that iPhone and iOS version, whatever, that it's going to work a certain way regardless of what version of phone it is.
Well, that is correct. When I think back, and we've come full circle with a lot of these anomalies and things happening, we're not getting that expectation a lot of times now.
Yeah.
And I think Apple has to be careful to make sure you deliver on the expectation of iOS working exactly as you expect it to, and always does, no matter what the phone. So really shore up the operating system, Mac and iPhone, and deliver, or people will start jumping ship. A lot will.
Well, and you bring up a good point there. Even on the DJI forums, I noticed that some people said during the last update, I think it was 11.1.2 that came out, that some people suddenly lost some functionality, and that can't happen.
No.
When somebody depends on that app to be able to, either run a drone for either enjoyment or for fun, they don't want to suddenly have, hey, I'm going to lose contact with the, this drone while it's flying over water, and
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't want that happening. So
so do
yeah,
you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go
well,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's really needs to be Apple's focus now. The hardware is great and amazing. It's a little pricey, but shore it up and make sure it's the same experience for everybody across the board, and it always works. I realize it's complex, but I feel like there's a lot more anomalies and maybe eyesores and issues than used to be, and they could mitigate that with
I would
focusing
love,
more.
we talked about it last year at this time, but I would love to see iOS 12 and macOS, whatever it happens to, 10.14, whatever it happens to be. I would like to see those be really just, we're going to fix all these problems and we're going to make
Yeah,
things a little bit easier to use. We're not going to add any new, huge, deep features that will, make life better in the future. No, just for 1 year, give people a
yeah.
much better experience, much more stable experience.
Just shore it up and make it super stable. Oh, let's
In
see.
case you're, in case you're wondering, there's a cat wandering around down
I was looking. So next Tuesday, our broadcast will be December 5th, which is my mother's birthday, but we're also in December. And I wonder if maybe the iMac Pro will be available. They said in December. Who knows?
We can only hope.
I
Let's
have a
hope they
feeling,
don't do
yeah,
a home pod on
HomePod.
that.
If even when it does come out in December, I'm not necessarily going to pull the trigger right off the bat. I'll probably watch a lot of videos and
Yeah,
reviews and various things. I mean, it's a pretty good chunk of change, $5,000 to begin with, but
yeah,
I will probably have it for 10 years. Whereas the iPhone at $1,000, I'd want to upgrade every year. So
yeah.
it makes more sense.
Hey, I wanted to kind of end the show, with a show and tell. I think last week I may have mentioned the GoPro Fusion, and I actually have it here. This is
Oh,
a
okay.
virtual reality camera made by GoPro. Just came out last month. And to be honest with you, I haven't really had a chance to use it all that much. I need to do a bunch of testing, and I think that's finally going to happen tomorrow. Uh, it's interesting because I used to use in fact, I still have a Ricoh Theta S, which I used for doing 360 photos and video. And it was good, but there were some little quirks about it. The lenses that they use on there, you'd always get this, you could always tell it was a Ricoh Theta because you'd always get a purple lens flare in one point in the picture. Didn't matter where you were taking the picture, you'd always get that purple lens flare. And it also had some other little quirky things. And I understand that they didn't fix those with the latest version of the Ricoh Theta. So that's why I bought this. We'll see how it works. Let me just put it that way.
Well, yeah, I hope you have it by next week and give a report.
That sounds good. And that's Mary, our other cat, talking to me right now. So I think
I think she
she's
says
telling.
y'all have gone over an hour. So,
I think so. Well, we have, and I tell you, this was a good discussion tonight because
it was.
we really, both of us, kind of feel the same way that.
Yeah. It is an Apple site and broadcast, but we don't just, think everything's always perfect. We call it as we see it. And I think
Yeah,
we
yeah.
should.
Well, and they've always had their little quirks. I don't think they're going to go out of business anytime in the near future. But
No.
I think of the 90s when we were stuck on System 7 for I don't know how long, and then System 7.5, and then there was the weird System 8, and I don't know, it was just weird. It was a weird time, and things were really buggy and a pain in the rear to use. So hopefully we're not going to see kind of a reflection of that again.
No, I don't think so. Mostly it all does just work. The Mac is, for the most part, just totally rock solid, and the phone is too. I just have some of those anomalies like that. And
Yeah.
it's not like I haven't rebooted for a month. I rebooted 2 days ago, and then suddenly those thumbnails wouldn't show up. So,
Speaking of which, and we'll end up with this. I have to laugh because I was using my iMac the other day, and there was one little thing that was just not running right. It seemed like it was a little slow and doing some things like that. So I went into system preferences, or excuse me, not system preferences, but about this Mac. And of course, one of the things that you can do is bring up a system report. And one of the items that you can bring up in the system report, if I can remember where the heck it is, yeah, it's under software, but it'll tell you the time since boot.
right.
And I looked at that, and the time since boot on that particular machine was over 60 days. And I went, it's been that long since I rebooted this thing? So
That's
no wonder
something
it was acting a little weird.
yeah. That's something I check pretty often. But one more thing I'll add. You can do so many little things like that with Android. I know on the Galaxies, they have it where you can set your phone to reboot once a week, like on Sunday morning at 2 a.m. or every night, just to keep it fresh. I'd like a little bit more automation on the iPhone like that. If we could, I think it'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, and especially, since Apple bought the workflow app,
Right.
and, you can use it for automation, but what would really be powerful is if they made the workflow app able to actually control certain things in the operating system, like you're talking about there.
Right.
Just say, I'm going to create an applet, and this applet will run at boot. And what it says is once a week, reboot. So you just kind of have this endless chain of reboots once a week to clean everything out.
Yeah, I would love to be able to do that. And I can actually do that, mostly on the Mac. I'm certainly no expert, but I've really gotten into using Automator to automate a lot of tasks. Like I want the volume turned to 0 at a certain time every day, and then I have it turned back up. I don't ever have to do it. It's really amazing what you can do with it when you get into it. But that's another subject for another time.
Yeah, Automator and Apple Script, it's kind of sad to see that they've kind of pushed them out of the way.
They have.
I would really, really like to see a version of Workflow for Mac. And
well, speaking of that, they're going to have the A10 and the iMac Pro, they say.
Yeah.
So they're putting an iOS chip, an ARM chip in the Mac. So what's that saying?
An ARM chip.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, we've come to the end of an hour and 41 minutes, I see, by my timer of AWT live here. So
he actually means an hour 11 minutes, but that's okay.
Oh, an hour and 11 minutes. Sorry, I was looking at the time as 8:41. I'm tired.
That's all right.
I've done way too many podcasts today.
Yeah.
This is my third podcast. It's crazy,
Hopefully, your last tonight.
We can only hope. I don't know. Maybe no. I'm just not going to go down that path. But anyway, everybody, thank you for watching again. If you have a chance and you're watching this and you have not subscribed to the AWT Apple World Today channel, please do so. And we'd also appreciate it if you can give us one of those thumbs up, that looks exactly like the thumbs up button that you see on YouTube. And every one of those helps us a little bit, grows our audience just a little bit more. And when that happens, maybe we can get sponsors. When we get sponsors, maybe we can do some really fancy things like have brick walls behind us.
My backdrop is not green screen. That's real.
He has real. I have virtual.
I'm old-timey. iPhone 7 Plus and real backdrop.
Well, we will see you next week, same time, same bat channel, all the rest of that good stuff. Marty, as usual, it was a real pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, it was a good show. I enjoyed it. I appreciate. I'm thankful that Apple had that little bug today. It gave us our core topic.
Yes, it
So.
did. Thank you, Apple. Thank you,
And
Tim Cook.
and your flat cat's working great, by the way.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you notice we didn't have any hiccups today, so I love it. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a great one.